Masculine men are becoming increasingly rare nowadays. And knowing that a lot of women are trying to find men like this is what women mean when they say, where have all the good men gone? They're basically saying, where are all the masculine men? Because they are becoming a smaller and smaller pool of men. So knowing that, how can a woman attract a man like this? That's going to be the topic of this video. So I'll be sharing with you some tips that will hopefully help you attract a masculine man into your own life, because these men are becoming increasingly rare nowadays, and it's very unfortunate. I even made a recent video called Men Are Losing Themselves, talking about this exact topic because it's just unfortunate. But anyway, that aside, how can you attract a masculine man? Well, the first tip here should come as no surprise. You need to embrace your femininity. Remember, there is a thing in relationships and attraction in general called the law of polarity, and it basically states that opposites to some extent will attract each other. So in this case we have masculinity and femininity, and they attract each other. Masculinity does not attract masculinity, and femininity does not attract femininity. So if you want to attract a masculine man, you need to embrace your feminine side way more than most women do nowadays. I want to make a kind of a sister video to that previous video I already made called How Women Are Losing Themselves, because it's affecting both sexes. It's not just one or the other. We're all losing our ways, and it's really bad. And it's probably, well, it's due to a lot of society and a lot of movements going on nowadays, like feminism, as many, well, there are some good aspects of feminism. There are also some really bad ones that kind of encourage women to become more masculine, which is really bad because it's going to create a lot of single and unhappy women by the time they hit their mid-30s. I'm just predicting that we are probably going to have the highest amount of single unhappy women pretty soon in the near future because of feminism just teaching women to be more masculine, which is not what men want, especially masculine men. They want you to embrace your feminine nature, your feminine energy. You have it within you, it's there. It's just a lot of you have been told to kind of sweep it aside and to become more dominant and confident and that sort of thing. But no masculine man wants that. If they wanted that kind of masculine energy, they would date other men. So if you're going after straight guys, you need to be feminine. That's the only way you're going to get them. You can even see this in gay couples. Quite often you'll have one of the guys will be more masculine, the other one will be a bit more feminine, even with lesbians. So this law of polarity plays out pretty much across the board. So you have to embrace your femininity to attract a masculine guy. And you'll pretty much know what that means to some extent, but I can share with you some things that men do tend to enjoy. For instance, when it comes to just appearance, men are going to like it if you wear dresses more often and that sort of thing, or even just anything that resembles a more feminine side. Or even, you could probably do well to just mimic like styles that were kind of like from the past, like 70 years or so, like back when women were quite a lot more feminine than they are nowadays, and men will appreciate that. But in terms of like character traits, men appreciate women who are gentle, who are kind, who are caring, who, you're going to hate this word, but it's accurate here, who are a bit submissive. And no, that doesn't mean that she lets the man make every decision in the relationship or that sort of thing. It just means he's going to want a woman who has a bit more of a submissive nature. She knows when to kind of, I guess, give way, for lack of a better term. But see, even that's a problem, the fact that like a lot of women aren't going to like hearing that men will like her to be a bit more submissive. Like feminism has kind of made submissiveness this bad word. Oh, you should never be submissive. Well, here's the unfortunate reality. If you don't allow yourself to be at least somewhat submissive to your man, he's likely not going to find that a good thing. He won't be attracted to that. Well, I say your man as if you already have one, but if you're single, that's going to hurt you when it comes to attracting a masculine man, because they just aren't going to want a woman who's super confident and domineering and that sort of thing. I know a lot of you are told that these are good qualities to have, but a problem we often run into when it comes to attracting the opposite sex is that we tend to project what we want onto them. Meaning, or actually not onto them, sorry, we tend to project what we want onto ourselves, meaning that a lot of guys want a woman who is more kind and caring and submissive like that. So some guys will think that that's what women want as well in a man. And that's why you'll have like those stereotypical nice guys who are kind and submissive, but women aren't attracted to that. Well, the same thing goes for women. A lot of women want a man who's confident and dominant and strong and assertive and that sort of thing. So they'll think that that's what those men want. But they don't. They do not want a woman who is super assertive and confident. That doesn't mean you can't be confident, of course. What I mean is they just don't want a woman who's going to be over the top in that regard, where she's so assertive that she constantly is like fighting with him and just being argumentative and combative with him. He's not going to like that. That's going to push him away. So that's what I mean. So just think about that. Men aren't necessarily going to want you to exhibit the qualities that you want in a man. That just it often isn't the case. You have to realize that they're separate things. What you want in a man is not what he wants in a woman. And the same thing goes for both sexes. It's something we all need to wrap our heads around, because we all trip ourselves up when it comes to attracting the people that we desire, because we think that they want what we want. And it's not often the case. But anyway, on to the next thing. It's important that you also don't create drama. I kind of already somewhat touched on this, but men aren't going to want a woman who is super combative and argumentative. They just don't want that, especially naggers. I mean, you've heard men talk about this for millennia. Men do not want women who constantly nag. We don't like that. We really don't. It's just we want women who will bring peace into our lives, pretty much, who will kind of add to our life and make it a better experience. But if he comes home from work, which is usually going to be something rather mentally taxing, or even sometimes physically taxing for a lot of blue collar workers out there, they aren't going to want to come home and then deal with you being combative or argumentative or nagging him. No guy wants that, especially the masculine guys. No guy in general wants that, but I hate these terms, but they work here. Beta guys will be able to put up with, or they'll be willing to put up with that, because they'll want sex from you, of course, and other companionship and other things. But a masculine man, he's not going to care about those things as much. He will care to some extent, of course, every man does, but he'll be confident enough to leave you if you are always nagging him about random things that he just doesn't want to put up with. So do not nag, do not create drama in his life that isn't necessary. Just don't do it. Figure out other ways of getting those emotions off your chest. Tell it to your girlfriends, whatever it may be. Just don't create drama. No man really wants to put up with that. But anyway, that's like beating a dead horse at this point, because I feel like every guy is pretty much says it. So women know that to some extent. You have to be willing to work on that. If you are someone who constantly nagged previous boyfriends or ex-husbands or whatever it may be, just learn to work on that behavior. Figure out some way of dealing with it, because it is not going to do you any favors in your relationships with men. But anyway, the next thing here, this is a pretty important one as well. Learn to separate your work life from your home life. This kind of ties in with the law of polarity that I mentioned earlier, because quite often for women who are more in like white collar work, you will be kind of incentivized to be a bit more masculine on the job, because if you're working with men, or if you're in a manager role and you are supervising men, you probably will have to be a bit more masculine to keep them in line. And that's, we understand that. It's because the average guy who hasn't worked on himself, he's not going to like being told what to do by a woman. That's how those people are. They haven't worked on themselves enough to be comfortable in their masculinity, to take orders from a woman without realizing that it's an affront to his masculinity. Guys who've actually worked on themselves aren't going to care either way. They're going to be like, whatever, this is a job. You're in the manager role because you have the experience. Just let me know what I need to do. I'll do it, whatever. Who cares? So I'm only saying that because it's just such a common thing where women will be uber masculine on the job. But then here's where the mistake is. When they get home, they don't turn that off. That's a huge issue. Because like I said earlier, masculine men do not want a masculine woman. So if you're not able to flip that switch and become more submissive and more gentle and caring and kind and peaceful when you get home, you could potentially scare away a great masculine guy, because he's not going to want you to be super confident and domineering and assertive with him. He just won't want that. So make sure, if you have a job that requires you to be a bit more masculine, just figure out some way of kind of getting out of that mindset on the drive home, so that once you are home, you're a completely different person from who you are at work. You're no longer that masculine woman. Like, you're not in that your masculine energy. It is something we can work on. I mean, really, like, it's not like this is impossible to do, but it does take practice. So just figure out some way where you can kind of maybe meditate on the drive home, or just figure out a way of flipping that switch. And with any luck, hopefully you work a job where you don't even need to be masculine at all on the job, and that will help you tremendously, because then you'll just be able to be yourself in any given moment. And then when you go home, you're still yourself, because you don't need to embrace masculinity for your work. So you're able to just be feminine throughout the whole day. But for those of you who are in those positions that require you to be a bit more masculine to actually get some buy-in from your male coworkers, just make sure that you flip that switch before you get home, so that you're not going to be super masculine with your guy. But anyway, that was yet again a bit of a kind of an interesting one, because it's a shame how that even has to happen. But I get it. A lot of guys haven't worked on themselves, so you will have to be a bit more masculine to keep them in line. But anyway, on to the next thing. And this is another important one, and this will be the last tip that I have for you. Stay active. Take good care of yourself. If you're with a masculine man, a guy, hopefully you've understood what I meant by masculine here. I'm not just talking about a guy who's like super alpha or something, or super masculine to the point where it's like almost bad. What I more mean is a great masculine guy, a guy who embraces his masculinity but is also great on top of it. He's done a lot of work on himself. So I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but it just slipped my mind. So that's what I mean here. So a guy like that will probably be a bit more fit in general. Usually, guys who are a bit more masculine, who are actually working on becoming the best possible version of themselves, because that's who I mean when I say a masculine man in this video, they will almost always be on the more active side. Whether or not that means hitting the gym or rock climbing or cycling or whatever it may be, they will likely be active in some form. So they're going to want you to be the same way. They're going to want you to stay in shape, because they're not going to let themselves go, right? So they wouldn't want you to do that either. And I know that sounds shallow or whatever, but seriously, these guys are putting a lot of work into themselves to stay or to become who they desire being, to be the best version of themselves. If you aren't willing to put in that same work on yourself, you're not going to be able to keep it around a guy like that, because he's just not going to like that. That's going to make him turn off from you eventually. If you're willing to let yourself go once you've landed him, you're probably going to eventually lose him. So don't let that happen. Stay active, stay fit. Don't buy into that stupid quote from, I think it was Marilyn Monroe, or I don't know who exactly said it, but that whole, if you don't accept me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best. That's stupid. That's one of the most ridiculous quotes out there, because really, nobody should have to deal with anyone at their worst. If somebody is at their worst and they need to work on themselves and pull themselves out of that hole, they shouldn't expect other people to suddenly just accept it. If you feel like you're starting to let yourself go, then work on that. Start exercising, eating better, doing what you need to do. Do not stay there just because you're feeling bad. Don't expect your man to continue having to show you the same feelings that he showed you at the beginning of the relationship, then when you're starting to decline like that. Now, I'm not saying this to be insensitive. What I more of mean is, you just shouldn't want a man to accept you when you're letting yourself decline and you're doing nothing about it. Now, if you're declining and you're working on it, then yes, you should expect him to stick by your side, because he should know, okay, this is temporary. You're actually trying to get yourself out of this situation, and that happens to all of us. We all go through periods that aren't great, where maybe we're dealing with something traumatic, so it makes us kind of slip up for a bit. So what I more of mean is if you're letting yourself go and you're doing nothing about it, do not expect him to continue to have to show those same feelings that he showed you at the beginning of the relationship now. Because if you're not doing anything about it, that is incredibly unfair. That's like, I can't think of a great example here, but that's just, it's not a good thing to do. It'd be like, I guess, accepting or here's a good example. It'd be like you have a king and a queen end up marrying each other and they have a great relationship, and then somehow the queen starts becoming less like a queen and more like a, oh God, this is a bad analogy as well. I want to say the queen lets herself go and becomes more like a peasant, but that, yeah, that's a bad analogy because it makes everybody else seem bad. But you get what I'm driving at here. Just don't let yourself go. It is, no man should have to accept that if you're not going to be willing to actually work on it. It's just, you wouldn't accept a man at his worst who doesn't do anything to get out of it, right? So why would you expect him to have to put up with that from you? It's a stupid double standard that's ridiculous that it even exists, but I see a lot of people spew that crap online, and it's just, I wanted to put a nail in that coffin right here and now, because no masculine man who has really worked on himself is going to accept that of you. So just make sure you stay active and just don't let yourself go, just like he won't let himself go. And if he does let himself go, then yeah, you have all the right in the world to leave him over it. So these are two-way streets. They go both ways. This isn't some crap where one gender gets special privilege over the other. That's stupid. But anyway, I'm going to end the video here. I hope that these tips have helped you. I hope that you see how they can help you attract a masculine man, because it really isn't all that complicated when you get down to it. What men want, men have like a list of 5 things that they want when you get down to it. And it's what I already said. They want you to be feminine. They want you to not create any drama. They want you to stay active, stay in good shape. That's it, really. And those 3 things, that's all you need to attract a masculine man. It's much easier than it is for us men who have to deal with women having on average like a list of 20 and up or more things that they want from us, and just incredibly unrealistic expectations. But that's the way things are nowadays. So it's what we have to adapt to and live with, and hopefully somewhere in the near future people will start coming back to reality and realizing that all these just ridiculous wants are going to hurt them in relationships and lead to them being single for prolonged periods of time, because it really shouldn't be all that complicated. People should have lists of things that they want from the opposite sex that are less than 10 items, less than that, less than 5 items. If you have more than that, then you're going to be single for a while. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, the easiest way you can support me is just to like, comment, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Arrivederci!